Today's topic is what happens at your probation interview. It's probably one of the most important questions we get asked from our clients. What to expect from a probation interview. If you've recently pled guilty to a felony case here in San Diego County and you have a probation interview coming up, or if one of your loved ones has a probation interview coming up, stick around. I think you're gonna love this video. My name is Dodd. I've been a criminal defense attorney since 2004. My firm is Dodd Law. We're located here in San Diego, California. Hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. I'm here to give free legal advice to help educate the public and help the public get the help they need. And today what I want to talk about is probably one of the most important things that you will do in your case, and that's your probation interview. Now, let's back up a little bit. How do we even get to the probation interview? We get to the probation interview because you pled guilty to a felony and you are now going to go do a probation interview. And when you plead guilty to a felony, there are several things that can happen when you're given probation. So if the judge has indicated they're going to give you probation, you're going to have an interview, or if the judge has indicated they're going to consider prison and probation, all options are on the table, you're going to go do a probation interview. And you got to think about it this way. Whatever you tell the probation officer is going in a report and is going to go right to that judge. So it's the most important thing that you're going to do in your case is your probation interview. Now, in downtown San Diego, the moment you plead guilty to a felony, you're going to have to report right away to the next door building at the Hall of Justice. You just go to the third floor of the downtown courthouse and you walk across that bridge and you go to the probation department. You set up your probation interview. If you're in El Cajon, you're going to go upstairs in the same courthouse, schedule your probation interview. If you're in Vista, you're going to go to the second floor and you're going to schedule your probation interview. If you're in Chula Vista, the probation department is not in the courthouse. You're going to have to do a little bit of walking. You're going to have to walk outside and the deputy will give you the address to the probation department once you're done. So the most important thing is once you plead guilty to a felony case, the judge is going to order you to the probation department forthwith. Forthwith means right away. So you go to the probation department, you set up a probation interview, and you're not going to do the probation interview that day. The probation interview will be a few weeks prior to your sentencing, and your sentencing probably will be a good 30 to 60 days after the day you plead guilty. So, and everything I'm talking to you about is assuming you're out of custody, right? Because a lot of times you plead guilty and you're in custody, and the probation officer is going to have to come to the jail to do the probation interview. But if you're out of custody, you got to set up the probation interview. You got to do the probation interview. Now, what's going to happen at a probation interview? Now, look, if the judge has indicated to you that they have all options on the table, meaning you could do prison, you could get probation, your probation interview is the most important thing that you're going to do. And you're going to have to talk to your attorney about this. And sometimes an attorney will advise you not to talk about the facts and details of the case. Sometimes I do that in certain cases, but this is not meant for you to do exactly what I'm telling you. Consult with your attorney prior to doing the probation interview. But the most important thing in your probation interview is two things. Number one, be respectful. And number two, be apologetic, remorseful, and forthcoming. What does that mean? Accept responsibility. Why? Because you pled guilty, right? Now, you went to court and you went over this blue change of plea form with your attorney and you told the judge that you're guilty. And now the judge is sending you to the probation department. The last thing you want to do when a judge has said they're going to consider all options on the table, probation or prison, the last thing you want to do is go to the probation department and minimize what happened. The last thing you want to do is go to the probation department and say, I just pled guilty because my attorney told me to plead guilty. The last thing you want to do is go to the probation department and say, I just pled guilty because I just want to get this case over with and behind me. Those are the absolute wrong answers to give. Because if you give those answers, you're probably going to go to prison if the judge said they would consider prison or probation. There's a very high likelihood. Why? Because you did not accept responsibility. The most important thing for you to do at your probation interview is be honest, forthcoming, remorseful, apologetic. If there is a victim in the case, you have to be very apologetic. Look at what the victims and the victims' families are going through. That's what you have to look at. You have to put yourself in their shoes, what they're going through. Very remorseful, very apologetic. Now, I have a sample probation report here. I want to kind of go over with you here in the next few minutes what types of questions that they're going to ask you. So typically what they start out with at first is they just get to know you. You know, where were you born? Where did you live? Where did you live? You know, what cities did you live in and for how many years? They're also going to ask you about your current living situation. Where do you live? Who do you live with? You know, what part of town do you live? They're going to ask you about your family relationship. Are your mother, father still alive? Children? Are you married? You know, how much family support do you have here in San Diego? And that's very important. Having a lot of family support here in San Diego is very important because that tells the judge that you have a shoulder to lean on, and a judge can take the risk and give you probation. They're also going to ask you about your marital status, how long you've been married, if you've ever been divorced, how many kids you have, whether you're paying child support or not. They're also going to ask about your family's criminal history and your family's mental health history. They're going to talk about your acquaintances. They're going to talk about your social activities. What do you like to do? That's what they're going to ask you. They're also going to ask you about, obviously, your education, where you went to school, high school, college, what kind of diplomas you have, if you have any postgraduate certificates, if you went to law school, medical school, anything that you've done as far as school is concerned, they're going to ask you. And they're also going to ask you questions regarding your military service. Now, what does the probation department do with all that? You know, they're also going to ask you, you know, your financial information. How much do you make? How much do you make weekly, monthly? They're also going to ask you other psychological and substance abuse issues you have and any history of treatment that you've done. After they do this probation interview, then they put together a long probation report. And basically what they're doing is they're going to give a recommendation. And that recommendation is going to go straight to the judge. You know, we get a copy of the recommendation. The DA's office gets a copy of the recommendation. And it's very likely, and more likely than not, that the majority of the time, the judge is going to follow what the probation recommendation is. So if probation says, we want Mr. Client to get 365 days, but we think doing it on an ankle bracelet is appropriate, that's probably what the judge is going to follow. Very likely. So a lot of times, and when I say a lot of times, I say the majority of the time, when the probation makes a recommendation, that's pretty much what the judge is going to follow. But as your attorney, we put together our own statement in mitigation, and usually we're asking for less than what probation is recommending, or there's a very high likelihood that we might even agree with what the probation department is telling us. And then we go to court, we do the sentencing, and the judge makes a decision. So if you took nothing away from this, the number one thing I can tell you at your probation interview, be remorseful. You pled guilty for a reason. Be very apologetic and be honest. My name is Dodd. I've been a criminal defense attorney since 2004. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. Let's help educate the public. Thank you. Have a great day.